I am going to be able to play it back for people. So I just wanted to make everyone aware. But without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Mark Leinweaver.
I appreciate the introduction and the opportunity, Mr. Schmidt, not only to yourself and certainly the clubs you recognized, but to the entire school district. I know we have some special guests from area schools joining us tonight, but this presentation is really truly designed for student athletes and parents. And I'm going to go through this fast. As quick as I'm speaking now, I'll probably eventually talk faster. I don't smile a lot despite having a really lighthearted and I think pretty jovial personality. And the reason I get that out of the way early is this is serious stuff. We are here to talk about character. We are here to talk about opportunities in college, but really the here and now. Because too often I see people getting way far ahead of themselves and not going really from day to day, arguably hour to hour, even minute by minute. And this is how tonight will roll out. 2 or 3 minutes of housekeeping, about 15 or 20 minutes of perceived college recruiting, and then about 15 or so minutes about character. And we could save time at the end for questions. Oftentimes, a lot of people are unfortunately shy to ask questions. And so Mr. Schmidt has all of my contact information. We are recording this. Every single document that I will discuss and share tonight is really now the property of Nipmuc. You can have every one of these documents and Mr. Schmidt can send them to you. I'll leave it up to him as to how he disseminates that information. Don't worry about scrambling and taking notes as much as I'd ask you to listen and engage, because all of this is going to be available to you long after we're done. So in terms of housekeeping, we're going to move quick. And as I said, I'm not too much in the business of smiling because I have a 24/7, 365-day-a-year job as a major league sports agent. That's not what this is about. What it is about is me remembering where I came from, what this process did for me 20 or 25 years ago, and finding an opportunity to, despite representing Red Sox players and Yankees players and players really on all 30 teams, finding the time to work with you and your school district on something that, frankly, I talk so often to my major league players, my minor league players and their families about the exact same thing. So at times we're going to share to the screen. I'm going to ask Mr. Schmidt to do that. At times I'm going to ask for the full screen so I can look right into this camera, straight into your eyes and make a point. So let's get into it. Mr. Schmidt, can you please bring up the one sheet that says who is and why Mark? So this first one sheet, it gives you a 30,000-foot overview as to who I am and why I'm here. Okay, now who is and why Mark is exactly what you'd think it would be. Who is this guy and why is he here? Why is he sharing his time, and better said, why are you sharing your time with me? And I could start by telling you I'm a Major League Baseball agent with over 20 years experience. All right, this presentation isn't necessarily my opinion. This is conversations. These are facts that I have gained and gathered over 20 years in the world of sports, at the professional level, at the collegiate level, at the high school level, at the youth level. And those qualified conversations from the top all the way down, from the big leagues to the little leagues, as they say. That is what so much of this messaging is. And when I tell you that it is not opinion, but rather fact, so much of tonight is fact. My next point, I represent over 75 players and their families, including Major League All-Stars. The key word there is family. It's not just the player. It's the mom, the dad, the brother, the sister, the fiance, the wife, the son, the daughter. And I bring that up because for all of those moms and dads out there, this is beyond just your son or daughter. It is not exclusive to these adolescent student athletes. And oftentimes, especially when we get to character and social media dangers, the victims are the student athletes. But who led them down that road is sometimes who's around them. And oftentimes, I start to see it's family members or it's outside factors that put them in danger. I'm originally from Westchester County, New York. Now, that's not a whole lot different than where you are in Massachusetts. Okay, so New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, it's all about the same. The landscape's about the same. The level of athletic competition is about the same. The academics are about the same. It's not like we're talking about the athletics in Southern California, where I see so many of these student athletes going out to Pac-12 schools It's about the same where I'm from and where you're from. And the reason why I find these points to be relevant is because when I talk about the messaging I give to major league players and their families, that's the same messaging you're hearing tonight. I think that's unique. And I think it's a tip of the cap to both Mr. Schmidt and the clubs to bring this type of messaging into your community. And me being from Westchester, like I said, it's ultimately the same as you. And I'll prove that with my next point, which is I'm a graduate of Stonehill College, which isn't that far away from where you are now. I was a 4-year starter. I was a team captain, but here's the big reveal. I was a 4-year starter and a team captain when the team was 4-37. We were the worst team in all of Division II athletics my freshman year. I sometimes joke, and I don't think it's even that much of a joke, that if I tried to apply to Stonehill today, I wouldn't get in. And if I tried out for the team, I'd get cut. Those are facts, in my opinion. But the reality is I was a 4-year starter. I was a team captain. I know what that experience did for me, not just on the field, but off the field. I'm proud of that decision. And I remember where I came from and how that life experience at Stonehill, as I was forming, going from an adolescent teenager to, quite frankly, a young man, an adult at 21 years old, what that did and what that experience at Stonehill did, I never forgot that. I never forgot where I really truly created my roots. And that leads me to my next point, the positive impact that that decision made for me on and off the field. So you're not all going to choose Stonehill. You might choose Suffolk. You might choose Westfield State. You might go to Tufts, Bentley. You might go down to New York and go to Mercy College, or up into Vermont or Maine and go to Colby or Bates or what have you, Plymouth State. The bottom line is you will find the right college for you. You will find that perfect place that you're going to spend your next 4 years. And on the field is 3 or 4 hours in a day if you're fortunate enough to make a team. But it's all of those other hours. It's all of that other time that's not on the field and frankly not in a classroom that's going to formulate who you'll become, not for the next 40 years, okay, but really the next 4. We'll get to the next 40 when we graduate, when we start to forecast down the road. You're trying to focus on the information you have right now, on what's going to be the best decision for you for the next 4 years. And I will really, truly try to explain tonight where it is about the 4-year experience off the field, not so much on it. On the field, on the court, on the track, in the pool. And finally, I think you can already tell from my messaging and my passion that I'm here because I'm on your team. You know who else is on your team? Your athletic director, Mr. Schmidt, your guidance director, your coaches, your principal, your superintendent. Too often do I see families try to place the blame on all of those aforementioned people. The very people that are sacrificing their lives, that are truly dedicating themselves to the best interest of the student athlete and the family, are the ones that are getting the finger pointed at them when you don't like to hear the truth, when the ball doesn't necessarily bounce your way. We live in a world now where everybody wants to take their ball and go home if they don't like what they heard. And too often what they heard is the truth. So we have to be very accountable. We have to realize that everyone that I am mentioning, the athletic director, the coaches, the guidance director, the principal, we're all on the same team. To me, it starts with the messaging tonight, the education you've committed to. But don't forget that, because through this process, every single member of that team is going to play a position. They're going to play a role. So that sets the table for us tonight. We could take down that one sheet. And let's just go back to the full screen to slightly expand upon what I just said. So the bottom line is, and I'm really going to anchor on the whole, we're on the same team. I mentioned I'm a major league agent. I represent 75 players. You know, current Red Sox players like Josh Taylor, the left-handed pitcher. For moms and dads out there, I represented Keith Folk. Many of you remember who he is and what he did in 2004. The point is, as much as I represent those players and I'm an agent, I'm not the only agent on this call anymore. For every single one of my student athletes, congratulations, you are now an agent too. Any idea who your client is? Because you only have one of them. It's yourself. And if you don't know your pros and you don't know your cons, if you don't know your strengths, if you don't know your weaknesses, you are not going to be able to properly represent your client. You are your own client. It is your job to do this. Your mom and dad, for every one of my student athletes out there, they are here to help. They are part of that team I just mentioned. They are support, just like your coaches, just like your AD, just like your guidance director. But no one is going to do this for you. Certainly some third party that mom and dad are paying thousands of dollars to, who are promising promising you, if you sign up with my service, I'll find a place for you to play in college. No way. This is on the responsibility of my student athlete agents. And like I said, this presentation isn't only about playing in college, it's about character. And that's when we're really going to start to challenge ourselves and see how good of an agent are we in representing ourselves. Now, as we switch and get into the next sheet, I do want to make it very, very clear. I am not yelling at anyone. I am not trying to be overly harsh. At times, it might seem like I'm getting a little hot. At no point in this presentation am I ever yelling at a student athlete. But I will tell you, there are plenty of times in this presentation that I'm going to challenge the moms and the dads, because there's no education out there like the one we're about to talk about. And the reality is, we are all trying, meaning the adults. We're trying to do this in the best interest of these young men and women who need our assistance, who need our guidance, and we need to put our egos aside in order to truly service them. Let's go to the one sheet that says character matters. So this sets us up for where we are tonight. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on these first two sentences. We're going to focus really on this third sentence, this third small paragraph. And as we scroll down, we see all high school student athletes, in addition to athletics and academics, must be aware of social media dangers and consequences, volunteers in their community, and leaders in anti-bullying. And I will tell you that athletes who do actively participate on their varsity and summer teams, they could play at the next level, but they have to identify that perfect college first. We talked about that a moment ago. We'll dig in a little further here in a few minutes. And that the reality is that 95 to 99% of all of the population are going to be better suited for a D2 or a D3 program, a non-scholarship D2 or D3 program. And I'm one of those people that makes up 95 to 99%. I told you I went to non-scholarship Division II Stonehill College. And that if you were to get cut from the team for factors of you were completely overmatched because you're an 18-year-old doe-eyed freshman competing against 20 and 21 men and women adults who are bigger and faster and stronger and smarter than you. And I don't care if you started on varsity as an 8th grader, this will be the biggest athletic jump you've ever faced in your life. And frankly, you're just completely athletically overmatched. Or maybe you got hurt on the second or third day of tryout and somebody who came in from Mashpee just absolutely blew it up and took your spot. Or a junior college transfer comes in from Westchester Community College in New York. They're a junior with 2 years of college experience. You have 0 college experience, same spot, 1 left on the team. It's going to go to the older player. Factors you can't control. Coach comes in, promises you X, Y, and Z, decides that they're going to go take the associate head coach job at Holy Cross. New sheriff comes in to run the program, doesn't jive with you. These are all factors that could lead to not playing in college that no one's talking about, which is why I continue to go back that you've got to be on the right campus for the right reason. You've got to find that perfect place first. But should you get cut as a freshman, where there are maybe going to be 3, 4, 5 roster spots for freshmen, and there are going to be 20, 25, 30 people trying out, and you don't play all those 3 or 4 positions. And should you get cut for either of those factors I mentioned or something else, it's up to you. You can decide, do I want to go knock on the coach's door the next day? Be accountable. Say, look, I wasn't good enough to make the team as a freshman. It's going to be really hard to make a team as a freshman. It's going to be even harder to start on it. But if you knock on that coach's door and you're willing to volunteer with the program, help out any way possible, that coach, especially at a D2, D3, they're going to give you something to do. They're going to say, come back tomorrow. You'll be a part of this program. Mom and dad, your son and daughter, they're going to have teammates. They're going to have friends by default because they're still a part of that team. They're going to have surrogate parents by default because they're going to be working under that coaching staff. You fast forward 11 months, you try out again as a sophomore. You yourself went home. You got bigger, faster, stronger, and smarter. You're going to make that team as a sophomore, and you're going to play 3 out of the 4 years. The alternative, blame everyone, take 0 accountability, transfer to a school to start this process all over again. Mom and dad, you're not going to get the $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 you just spent on that year back, and blame everyone and take 0 accountability and watch your life go from this nice and smooth line to an absolute EKG. It'll be your choice. And that's in a doomsday worst case scenario. And finally, again, we're going to talk about the next 4 years, but I believe that so much of these elements that we're going to go over tonight, especially on character, it's setting you up for the next 40 years, not the next 4. And this is a lot more about preparing for life than necessarily preparing exclusively for college. Okay, let's go back down to the full screen. And just to give you a heads up there, Mr. Schmidt, we're going to go to the Division I percentages next, but I'd like the full screen for just a moment. So again, I'm coming at you hot. I'm talking fast. I understand that. But what I will tell you is this next slide, these are as facts get. Okay. Numbers control, statistics control who makes the team, who gets cut, who starts, who sits the bench, who gets all section, all state, who gets honorable mention. I think we can all agree that the numbers, the statistics oftentimes determine those types of outcomes. And so when we look at these next set of statistics, people choose to ignore them, believe they're not true because they don't want to believe them. So let's go to the Division I statistics because these are real and this is what you are up against. And I am just simply trying to wrap yourself around real life, real world and how it's going to spin. These are the percentages of high school athletes who earn a spot on a men's or women's Division I team. Less than 3% for football, water polo, field hockey, lacrosse, golf, swimming, track, soccer, and cross country. Less than 2% for basketball, wrestling, and volleyball. Excuse me. Less than 2% for baseball, softball, and tennis. And less than 1% for basketball, wrestling, and volleyball. Ice hockey, which I know is big in Massachusetts and in the New England states, highest percentage at 5%. If you could scroll down a tiny bit more to there, Mr. Schmidt, I want to point this out. These percentages reflect just making the team, not receiving a scholarship. So what I just described is being the last player at the very end of the bench, the person that's playing Division I, but is there to make the scholarship starters better. You are the garbage time practice player who fills out the roster. That's what these 1, 2, and 3% of the population is describing. You're going to get a Division I athletic scholarship. That's going to be half of these percentages. And yet somehow, some way, we are convinced that we are better than the 95 to 99% of the population, and that we are absolutely positively 1 to 3 of these percent. And I'm just here to tell you, I'm all about supporting dreams and hopes and hard work and every positive outcome that can come from this. And we can take that one sheet down. Let's go back to the full screen. But now's a good time to also tell you that the stats and the facts don't lie. And someone is going to make up 1 to 3%, and I'm all about it. I represent those players when they were in college and come out and go into the draft. But you have to realize, if you are D1 material, if you are part of that 1 to 3%, those colleges, I don't care if it's Siena or Syracuse, if it's Marist or Mississippi, they are going to come find you in 8th or 9th grade. You are going to commit to most of those schools by the time you are a sophomore. If you are a junior going into your senior year and you're running around to every Division I showcase event that you're paying to be there at UConn or up in Maine, that's not being recruited by a D1. You will know if you are being recruited by a D1. Every Division I program, men's or women's, doesn't matter the sport, knows who every Division I caliber player is, not just in your state or in your region, but in the country. And again, I'm not here to dash dreams and burst bubbles. I'm here to give you a sobering reality of how hard it's going to be. This will be the statistic that will hopefully resonate the most because this is the biggest eye opener. This is the wallop punch. Here it is. There are 130,000 high school seniors playing baseball from coast to coast. I chose baseball of all those sports because it's got the highest probability of success. Doesn't matter if it's men's or women's. And of those 130,000 high school seniors from coast to coast, 9,800 of them will go on to play Division I, Division II, Division III, and NAIA combined. That is 7.5% of the population that will go from a high school senior to a college freshman at a 4-year school. All the other sports, men's or women's, less than 7.5%. That means that 92.5% of the athletic population is not going to play in college. The next time you want to scoff at Division II Stonehill, the next time you want to think you're better than Division III Springfield or Westfield State, you might want to think again. Because to make the worst Division III team as the worst Division III player in the entire country will be the most remarkable athletic accomplishment you will ever have in your entire life to date. This is real life, real world realities. And I already told you, you're going to be an 18-year-old doe-eyed freshman playing against 20 and 21-year-old men and women, juniors and seniors, who are not going to get beat by someone 3 or 4 years younger than you. They are going to look to shove it to you, and that is real life, real world. These are the realities. And what I'm trying to do is help formulate a path, and this is where we'll transition, to help formulate a path where all of my student athletes are their own agents. They can represent themselves through this process because you're going to have to recruit yourself. And mom and dad, now's a good time for me to remind you that as much as I don't believe the statistics show that you will get some sort of athletic scholarship, every one of these student athletes will be on some sort of scholarship, paid for by mom and dad at the tune of $100, $150, $200, maybe $250,000 over 4 years. You are going to still pay for them to play. And oh, by the way, isn't college all about getting the college education? You'll find the best place for you to grow as an adult and put you in the real world position. I don't hear that conversation that often at the high school level. It's all about who's going to allow me to start as a sophomore. Who's going to guarantee me a spot on the team? And that's where we transition into the real life, real world. Because when I talk about your guidance directors, it's not their job to just, in my opinion, show up and start formulating where you should go to school. You got to do some work. Let me ask you a question. Do they roll out the ball on day one and start playing games against the rival high schools? Or do you come in and practice for weeks or months in a preseason? You know the answer is you practice for weeks or months in a preseason. You want to throw in the voluntary workouts and the gyms and all those kinds of things before even the preseason. We were talking about a remarkable prep work to get ready to play that first game. It is no different here. We have to come in prepared to our guidance directors, to our athletic directors to say the size of the school, the distance from home, the majors and minors you could be interested in, the extracurriculars. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. But I do want to say that the next time you're driving home from a game or picking up a young man or woman, mom and dad, from practice, how about we have a conversation of what size of school would you ever consider wanting to go to? Because there's a huge difference between sitting in a classroom of 30 or 40 or 50 or sitting in a lecture hall of 100 to 200 people. That's a real question and answer that I don't think is asked often. We run off to the showcase at the college campus. How often has we walked around that college campus to see how far it would be from A to B? When you have an 8:30 class that gets out at 9:45 and your next class is at 10, and it's 3/4 of a mile away across campus in 17-degree weather in the snow. Now, when's the last time we took advantage of that on a recruiting trip or a next showcase event? And by the way, that 43-minute algebra that they're currently taking, fast forward to a 65 or 70-minute lecture. The learning jump is going to be off the charts. All I'm asking for you is, where is your son or daughter going to excel in a classroom? In a classroom that's 30, 40, 50 like Stonehill was? Or a huge lecture hall, like a big state university that's going to have 112 people in the class, the professor's in front talking faster than I'm talking, and you're completely lost in the back? That's not for a weekend. That's not for a month. This is a 4-year educational commitment. Has nothing to do with athletics. Same thing, distance from home. You want to be 2 hours from Boston, 4 hours from Boston, 6 hours from Boston, jump on a plane, go down to Florida, out to Chicago, maybe all the way out here in California where I am. Well, if you want to do the latter, then buy a Southwest ticket and get them out of bed at 3:30, get them to Logan at 5:30, get them through TSA by 6:30, get them on the 7 o'clock flight, which will stop in Baltimore or Raleigh, go down to Tampa. You'll get there after a 12-hour travel day, go check out Tampa the next day, then fly home the day after that. That's called coming home for the weekend. And that's not going to be once or twice. That's going to be a dozen times, maybe 24 times over 4 years with an additional cost. Now, all of a sudden, maybe driving 2 or 4 or 6 hours seems better. You've gone to enough showcase events. You've been to enough travel ball events. How far is too far? How close is too close? Have those kinds of conversations. Again, still nothing to do necessarily with athletics. Majors and minors. I don't want to waste my time with, I want to be pre-med, I'm going to be a lawyer. What do they do well in the classroom now? Match up what they do in the classroom in high school to what those majors might be in college. Extracurriculars. Do they like to ski and snowboard? Or would they rather go outside for a hike and play around a golf and maybe go into a park and play some sand volleyball? Because the winters in Burlington, Vermont are going to last way longer than the winters in Baltimore, Maryland. So where are they going to thrive when they are in class and on a field, but also trying to get through 14 to 16 hours of a day with a bunch of strangers on a campus hours away from home, making this huge academic jump, and probably more importantly, this bigger social jump? Why are we putting them, if they hate cold weather and never ski and never snowboard, why are we just drilling them in upper Vermont or in Maine, where they are going to be miserable the moment it gets dark and cold out, where we could go that same 4 hours south to somewhere where the fall lasts longer and the spring starts sooner. To me, I don't have a master's degree like your athletic director or maybe your guidance director, an EDD like your superintendent might have, but I have a PhD, and it is in common sense. And that is all we're talking about here. This is all common sense type of stuff. Still haven't mentioned athletics. So here we go. We're now going to go to a voicemail, because what I just helped you do is formulate a profile so that when every one of my agents picks up the phone and calls the coaches, they could talk about how that college that they selected, no service needed, you did the work, you went into your guidance office prepared, you formulated a plan to come up with 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 schools, and you started to pick up the phone. And here we go. Let's go to the voicemail, please, Mr. Schmidt, because you know your size of the school, you know your distance from home, you know the majors and the minors you're interested in, you know what your extracurricular interests are, and now you think you're good enough to play for this program. Hi, Coach Bowen. This is Mark Leinweaver. I'm a junior at Yorktown High School in Yorktown, New York, and I'm calling to introduce myself because I'm very interested in Stonehill College, and I plan to visit the campus with my family on November 17th. I'm definitely interested in the communications program and obviously playing baseball for you as well. I'm the starting catcher on my varsity high school and summer travel team. I have a 3.1 GPA and I got a 1310 on my SATs. In addition to being an athlete, I'm a member of the Unified Special Olympics and I volunteer in the community for that charity. I appreciate that you are very busy with your own team, but I did want to reach out and let you know my sincere interest in Stonehill College and meeting you personally on my visit to campus. Again, this is Mark Leinweaver. My cell phone number is, thanks, Coach. I look forward to speaking to you. Let's take that one sheet down. Does that sound like a qualified voicemail that a college coach might call back? Told him who you were, told him what position you played, gave him a little bit of the proverbial back of the baseball, softball, tennis, golf, track and field, swimming. I don't care what your card is. You told them a little bit about yourself. You qualified for yourself. If you were going to go buy a vehicle, they're going to run you through a pre-qualification. They're going to check your credit. They're going to run your license. They're going to make sure that you are eligible to buy that car. Well, no different here, except for the fact that as we're going through this, jumping through these hoops, just begging for the opportunity to speak to a college coach, mom and dad, now's the best time to tell you, it is a buyer's market. You want to talk about a business or business of sports? You know, it's a business, college. And you know where your son or daughter can go? To any college that they can get accepted to. And frankly, you can afford. That's reality. You're going to pay for them to be there. And so we're praying, hoping, wishing that these coaches are going to call us. We control this narrative. The agent represents the player. The student athlete is the agent and the player. They got to represent themselves. We're going to call the head coach, the associate head coach, the assistant coach, the graduate assistant coach. If there's 5 of them, call all 5. When they don't call back, you call again. Why? Because you're interested in going to that college. Mom and dad, you're willing for them to pay to go for that college. We need to take more accountability and more hold on this process. And you know what you're going to do? Let's go to the email. After you leave the voicemail, what you're going to leave for all of those coaches, that you can find their name and their phone number directly on the college website. We're going to leave this email. We're going to follow up with this email written by the student athlete agent. The only thing I'm going to read on this document is the very first line. I also left you a voicemail on your office line. We are taking the initiative. These 16, 17-year-old kids, they are taking initiative, reaching out to the college coach they want to play for. Not some third party, not mom and dad calling on their behalf, not the athletic director prematurely talking about how great they are, a student that none of these coaches have ever seen play. Maybe they saw him once at some showcase or some travel ball event. I sure hope you're not earmarking the next 4 years of your life on those 2 at-bats or those 26 minutes of time that they saw you play, where in reality, they probably were hardly paying attention. You've got to take the initiative and put this in your court. So we're going to leave this email as a piggyback to the voicemail. The subject line is going to be my message. Half the time, the coaches don't listen to the voicemails. They're going to check their emails from their computer. They're inundated in their inbox with these third-party solicitors that are just crushing them, that they're not going to call an email back because they know it's a scam. They want to hear from the student. You send that voicemail, you send that email, you're getting a call back. All right, let's move on. Now, I just want to take a couple of quick minutes because I'm a tiny bit over time. I do want to take just a couple of just common sense points. I told you, PhD in common sense. And as you can tell, I'm fired up about this. I have a tremendous passion for it. I know what this process did for me going through it 25 years ago. I don't think a whole lot's changed, but the world has become a little more complex. And these student athletes, unfortunately, they don't have the same skill set, mom and dad, that you and I have, where we can look somebody in the eye, that we can give them a firm handshake, where we would have good posture, looking across from them, across from the desk, and having a conversation. The little etiquettes that go into real life, real world, they're missing. But I'll tell you what these young men and women do have that we didn't have. They have social media. They have LinkedIn. They have ways to shrink the world. So before we leave that voicemail, before we send that email, we know how to stalk on Instagram or Snapchat or whatever else we're wasting our time with making these ridiculous TikTok videos. How about we research the coaching staff? How about we do some homework? Is where the coach is from? Or are there members of the team that went to our high school or our neighbor high school? Is there a way to create some connectivity to personalize it? So when we leave that message or send that email, we're already separating ourselves from everyone because it's personal. Are there any connections? That's number one. Eventually, you're going to get a phone call back. You're going to get an email back. You're going to have that meeting on November 17th. And when you do, don't forget to write the old school handwritten thank you note. You send the text, you send the email in modern day technology, but when that handwritten thank you note shows up 3 or 4 days, that's going to show tremendous class. That's going to resonate with that coach. You can send a thank you note to Aunt Blanche or Uncle Fred for the gift you get at the holidays. Why not for the coach you want to play for and you're trying to impress? Because now's a really good time to tell you. I don't care who the team is. I don't care if it's in the NBA, the NFL, Big League Baseball, or down to the smallest Division III or top Division I program in the country. Every single team is built around 3 or 4 stud star players. How did the other players make the team? If there's 20 people on the team and 3 are stars that the success is built around, how did the other 17 make the club? Their athletic level of success and competition, it's about the same. It's negligible, the differences between them. Maybe somebody was the most responsible. Maybe somebody did have great character. Maybe somebody did show leadership skills. And you know where those determinations are being made? It's being made on these meetings I'm talking about. When I'm suggesting little notes like this is what can separate you from the beginning. On that very first engagement, when you take that visit to campus and you go through this process, because now is a really good time to tell you, every single person, regardless of any promise a college coach makes, Division I, II, III, or NAIA, you're going to have to try out for the team. And when I tell you that when you're in that meeting and you are handling yourself, you are representing yourself as your own agent, when you are failing to do some of the things that I talk about, and certainly the questions and answers we're going to get to in a moment, you are not going to make the team in that initial meeting, that first time sitting across from the coach, across from their desk after your campus tour. But I promise you this, you can get cut from that team before you even leave their office, based on how you handle yourself and how you represent your client. These are real life, real world facts. And nobody on this call, including the moms and dads, is prepared for it. So moving on. You go to campus with a purpose. You're on that campus for 4 hours. You take a 2-hour tour. Your meeting is at 4. Your campus tour started at noon. What are you doing from 2 to 3:45? Let's stop by the cafeteria and taste the food. Let's stick our head into the business office and see if the dean is there. Maybe we could see what a class looks like. Maybe we could talk to a couple of the students and get a feel for what that's like, because guess what? The schools in Burlington are going to look different than Buffalo, are going to look different than Boston, are going to look different than Baltimore. Those are 4 very different geographic regions. Thus, the people that attend those schools are going to look different. This is not going to be for 4 days or 4 weeks or 4 months. This is a 4-year financial commitment. And for all of my student athlete agents out there, this is where you are going to live the next 4 years of your life. You have 4 or 5 hours on the field or on a court or in a pool, 4 or 5 hours in a classroom. Let's say that's 10 hours. What are you doing with the other 14 hours in the day? And if you're going to sleep for 8 of them, what are you doing for the other 6? And I certainly hope you don't tell me playing video games or making TikTok videos, because that's not going to advance you in life. And so finally, the last point is, I would say this is also a good time to challenge yourself, right? If you think 2 hours is comfortable, then maybe you push yourself and see if it's 3, because making this decision as a 16 or 17-year-old, it's very hard to think about how you're going to feel and if your level of comfort will be the same at 18 and 19 or 20 and 21. So this is a really good time to start challenging yourself with these types of things. Again, just common sense types of approaches to this. And I believe that you will find a lot of value in that, because your enemy through this process is not money. Your enemy through this process is time, because eventually you're going to run out of it. And when I tell you, you're going to go through this, you're going to meet that coach, you're going to fall in love with that program, you're going to love that campus, you're going to put every ounce of effort into applying for that school. You're going to go through that process technically before you apply. And then you're going to find out if you got in. So your enemy of time and your approach to this process has to be far beyond just asking a coach if you could start as a sophomore, because that's what I see too often. All right, let's go to the questions. We're going to breeze through these, and then we're going to transition into character. I can tell you we're already in overtime. If you need to jump and can't watch anymore, that's fine. As you know, it's being recorded. So let's go to the questions. Now, as I said, this is a buyer's market. So here are some of the questions that a college coach is going to ask you when you visit their campus. This is for all my student athlete agents. What might you want to study in college? Seems pretty reasonable. That seems like a very fair question for a coach to ask. Not, tell me about how you led the conference in goals. Tell me about how you were the defensive player of the year. What do you want to study? What are your interests outside of sports and academics? Because mom and dad, this is a really good time to tell you, that 18-year-old doe-eyed freshman that coach is going to coach, that coach is going to babysit. That is a fact. And so that coach wants to know more about the person, not about the player, because more than ever, it's about character. And we're going to get to that. But even at the professional levels, teams are choosing to sign and draft people first and players second. What are your interests outside of sports and academics? Why is playing in college important to you? Hardest question is the next one. What aspect of your game needs improvement? We can all talk about how great we are. We can all talk about what we do well. What do you need to improve on? What's going to separate you to make this team get better year over year? Hard question to answer when you are nervous sitting across from a coach for 10 minutes in that first meeting. It's going to happen. It is real life. What type of person are you? Describe yourself. Would you fit in here? And how would you make our team better when you are not on the field? Are you going to be screwing around, pulling your phone out of the bag? Are you going to be heading the stands, waving to your friends? Or are you going to be locked into the game, trying to find little keys to help the team win? Mom and dad, this set of questions is for you. This is where you're going to participate, because it's your money that's going to afford them to play. So if we could scroll down a tiny bit, Mr. Schmidt, and let's get into these, what you should be asking a coach. Do you have an organized study hall for players? Will there be an academic advisor to monitor my progress? Do you allow athletes to pursue work study to offset costs? Not everyone's going to have this boatload of money to just have everything paid for. What if that work study conflicts with the practice schedule or the season? Why don't we ask those questions now, not find out later when we get there? How much time is missed due to travel? I went to Stonehill. We were 4-37. We played 41 games. We lost 37 of them. We would leave campus at 11:30 in the morning to go 3.5 hours to play a 3:30 game, to get absolutely destroyed, to get back on a bus, to get home at 10:30 or 11, and have an 8 o'clock class the next morning that we didn't study for or didn't write the paper for, to be on the worst Division II team in the country. No academic monitor. They expect you to do this on your own, to be an adult, to balance your athletics and your academics, and oh, by the way, be a good person. And then finally, describe campus life. Would you fit in here? And what about internships? Another good time to ask. What if there's a conflict with my internship? I want to go into education. I'm going to student teach my junior year, spring semester, and you play softball. That's going to be a conflict when you are in a classroom in February and March and April and May from 8:30 to 4:30. You're not going to play softball that spring. That's another fact. How about we ask these questions now? All right, let's take down that one sheet and let's transition a bit here to character. So let's go back to the full screen now. All right, so we're going to go a little bit, as I said, in overtime, because I spent more time here, admittedly, doing this for a reason. One, I want to tip my cap again to Mr. Schmidt and to the clubs, because Nip, Nipmuc is one of 5 schools in the entire state of Massachusetts to hear this lecture. I've done this over 100 times in New York and Connecticut and in California and 6 other states in the country. We're just transitioning into Massachusetts. So I wanted to really kind of give more of a broad stroke experience to what recruiting really looks like. Okay, and I'll say the way I see it, but so much of my messaging is formulated as I started from professionals and collegiate experts and amateur experts. And while this is what necessarily is why everyone's on here, what's the next level and how do I get there and how do I play there and what do I do and how do I cut the line? I'm all for that. And I hope everybody gets a Division I scholarship. I'm just sharing the percentages. And I know you have committed hours and days and weeks and months and travel and money, not just for the last 3 or 4 years, but maybe for as much as a decade to put yourself on the brink of this. That's why we took so much time. Now's a really good time to tell you that if your core of character is compromised, if you make mistakes in what we're about to talk about in the next 10 or 15 minutes, everything I just talked about, everything I just summarized will not matter. And all of those dreams, all of those ambitions will disappear faster than the way I snap my fingers. And I'm going to prove to you how and why. So let's go to the 1 sheet, core of character. We'll start with social media awareness. We'll identify social media dangers and consequences. This is what we're going to talk about in this section. Social media dangers and consequences of what not to say, what not to do. Same lecture that I give Red Sox players, Yankees players, players on 28 other teams and their families. You're getting the exact same messaging that the pros get. Volunteering in the community, same thing. Same message I tell the players about giving back, whether it's special needs, inner city, animal rescue, adaptive sports, whatever it is. And in this example, I show you ways. You could Google any one of these combination of keywords in the city that is near you, and you will find endless numbers of opportunities to go volunteer. But truthfully, many of your schools, especially Nipmuc, you have special needs organizations, Unified, Pioneer, Miracle League, right there in your community. You could start in your own backyard. We'll talk about that. And then anti-bullying. You need to lead on and off the field, not follow. It is your role as an athlete. It is a job prerequisite, absolute part of your job description. And then we're also going to end on how we address and overcome if we're being bullied. All right, so let's take down that 1 sheet and let's get into these social media dangers and consequences. So now's a really good time to tell you, we'll go back to the full screen, that what I am holding in my hand, this is not a phone, this is not a device, this is a weapon. And mom and dad, you have no idea how dangerous this weapon is, that you are just haphazardly throwing into the hands of your 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 and 17-year-old kid. And I intentionally chose the word kid, not student, not young adults, kid. Let me give you a couple of examples. I'm going to give you hypotheticals to start. So we're big rap fans, right? We like rap. Doesn't matter if it's Nipsey Hussle, Kendrick Lamar, Post Malone, whomever. And that new song drops on a Tuesday on Apple Tunes, and you listen to it and you look up the lyrics and you're like, man, this passage really speaks to me. And you screenshot it and you shout it out to the world. You post it on Instagram. How about Kendrick's new album? How about this verse? How about this? How about that? And the moment you hit send and you don't realize that the N-word is used in that particular lyric, you are officially a racist, because there is no one out there that is going to view it any different. They're not going to say, oh, that's Kendrick Lamar's lyric. You posted what appears to be an organic thought where you use the N-word, and you are going to be classified as a racist. I don't care how fast you delete it. I don't care how often you apologize. And guess what? Mom and dad, you're the parent of a racist. And guess what? For all my coaches out there, you coach racist players. For my athletic director, my guidance director, my principal, my superintendent, you got a racist culture. All based on that one text. Told you, it's just a hypothetical. Here's another one. We're all dancing around, acting a fool, making a TikTok video. Somebody from the back yells, "This is so gay." You know exactly how that was meant. And I know you were not describing the happy-go-lucky time everybody was having. You know how that gay slur was used. It is a homophobic slur. And as if it wasn't bad enough that you were the racist, you are now a homophobe. And it's not just you, it's the whole collection of people making that TikTok video. It's a collection of homophobes. So now, as if we are not classified as a program, as a department, as a school district, as a community, as racist, now we're homophobes. And mom and dad, you are the parent of the racist homophobe. Told you, just another hypothetical. Here we go. I'm going to give you a real one, because this was covered on Fox News and covered on CNN. It was written about in the New York Post. It was written about in the New York Times. This was as down the middle coverage, unbiased, non-political as can be. A female freshman high school student in Virginia sent a private Snapchat to a friend where she used the racial slur. The video was then circulated. It's a Snapchat. How does this get circulated? But it was circulated and saved by another student who was a male African-American. The female student said that the word she used in the Snapchat was, quote, in all the songs we listen to, end quote. Remember my hypothetical? Doesn't sound so hypothetical anymore. What she said in the Snapchat to her friend was, quote, I can drive, N-word. It wasn't until her senior year, that's 3 years later, 3 years later, this student sat on that Snapchat. After she was accepted into the University of Tennessee and onto its national champion cheer team, that the post reemerged. Because after the female student went to Instagram to voice her support of the BLM movement following the George Floyd protest, the African-American student, the one from 3 years earlier who had saved that original Snapchat, well, he shared it. He shared it on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter, and he called out her hypocritical and racist behavior. And it led to thousands upon thousands of students nationwide, not just that little pocket of Virginia, nationwide, calling out the female students' use of the N-word. It resulted in public pressure on the University of Tennessee. First, her spot on the team, the national champion team, revoked. And then the school gave her an ultimatum. You either withdraw or Tennessee will rescind its offer of admission. She withdrew. She's now 19 years old and living at home with her parents. Her mother said that the entire experience, quote, vaporized 12 years of her daughter's hard work and unfortunately going to affect her for the rest of her life, end quote. If you think that any one of those hypothetical examples are exaggerated, couldn't happen to you, then you are just lining up to be the next freshman female student from Virginia. Because these are that dangerous. These are weapons. I told you a little while ago, this isn't day to day. This isn't hour by hour. This is a minute by minute world. And you can watch everything you have worked for, everything we talked about in the first 30 minutes, disappear that quickly. And oh, by the way, classify you, not for the next 4 years, but for the next 40 as that racist homophobe. I'll give you one more example, because this is another real life, real one. I always hear it. Oh, you know, those are kids being kids. Those are boys being boys. Those are girls being girls. We got a couple of people. We're in the locker room. There's the kid. He's less popular. He's getting changed for gym class. He's in his tighty whities underwear, and somebody snaps a little picture. Not Instagram, not social media, just a little group thread among 2 or 3 buddies. Hey, check out the dork in his underwear getting changed for gym class. We share that picture among our friends. The girl, the catty girls, the mean girls, we don't like her. She's in her bra. She's also getting changed for gym class. We snap a little picture of her and we send that out to 2 or 3 friends. Well, you and I both know this is not going to stay quiet and private all that long. This is going to circulate. It's going to spread like wildfire. And when it does, and that victim, that boy, that girl finds out about it and calls their parent, they're going to make one phone call. It's not going to be to the teacher, the coach, the athletic director, the guidance director, the principal. It's going to the superintendent. And when the superintendent gets that phone call, they're making one call to the police. Why? Because that photo of a half-naked, underage minor disseminated is child pornography. And when that parent who has that child who was victimized, whose life has changed forever, says, I want to press charges. Well, when those police knock on the door and take you on a little ride down to the police station, that child pornography charge, you're going to become a registered sex offender. When I told you this is not about 4 years, but it's about 40, good luck getting a job as a registered sex offender. Good luck moving into a neighborhood one day as a registered sex offender. All because boys will be boys, girls will be girls, and mom and dad, where's the accountability? Not my son, not my daughter. My son or daughter, they were just on the group thread. They didn't send the picture. They had nothing to do with it. They didn't do anything about it. Exactly. They didn't do anything about it. So they're just as guilty. These are real life, real world consequences. And if you think I'm exaggerating on any of this, keyword Google search, any type of combination, and you will find it. And I know you're not that far from Duxbury. If you paid attention to the news in the spring, that was a football program for a decade calling out anti-Semitic slurs to audible their plays. Coach fired, AD fired, team on suspension. And every one of those players, you can bet that when they are trying to apply to a college and play at the next level, those coaches, Division I, II, III, NAIA, you are going to get your social media scrubbed by every one of those coaches because they are not going to put their team's reputation on the line. They're not going to put their program's reputation on the line. They're not going to put their college reputation on the line. And most importantly, they are not going to put their personal livelihood on the line based on behaviors like this. Forget about not making the team. I just proved you might not get accepted into the college. These are real life, real world consequences based on quick minute by minute decisions that mom and dad, your sons or daughters are making too often. And the big leaguers get the same speech you're getting. Know what the difference is? Major league players, the minor league players, the pros, we have people in our office that we hire to police this behavior, including something as simple as liking a post on Instagram that might have ramifications, political ramifications, racial ramifications, that a fan calls out, now it's a firestorm, contracts voided, endorsement deals disappear. That's what I deal with on a daily basis. The difference is you don't have the police officer per se, police officer in the Twitter world, in the Instagram world, in the social media world to work and scrub this for you every single day, thus making your situation far more dangerous. Real life, real world. Okay, let's transition a bit. We're down the home stretch. We've got less than 10 minutes. I know we're in overtime. I want to talk a little bit about where we are in society with volunteering. And to me, I'm going to challenge a lot of the 9th and 10th graders because look, I realize nobody signed up for the COVID pandemic. I realize that it changed a lot of people's life. It took away opportunities. It was very difficult to overcome. A lot happened in there. And I can see it. I can see it in adolescent development. I can see it, how it affects people. And unfortunately, we talk so much about the athletics. We talk more about academics and how those young men and women, as they develop, might be a little bit at a disadvantage. No one signed up for this, but we got to roll with the punches. So I'm going to challenge you, every single one of you, to step up and be better. You want to be leaders on the field? I want you to be leaders off of it. No different than the players you look up to, the ones that dedicate their time to special needs, that dedicate their time to inner city and giving back, the ones who find ways to work with athletics in wheelchairs. And I will tell you, starting on your own campus, in your own community, special needs. You have special needs students in your school. You grew up with them. You went to school with them for years. They also love athletics. They have sports. They have leagues. You know what they need? They need volunteers. They need you to step up and help. They don't need mom and dad's $2,500 pity check so they can get a tax deduction to make themselves feel better. They need you to show up at 9 o'clock on a Saturday, stay till 1 o'clock on Saturday, and do that twice a month for the entire year. They need you to help out on a Tuesday and a Thursday night, maybe after your own practice, and go in and assist, even via Zoom, or do some work on a computer for that not-for-profit in the inner city that's trying to raise enough money so they can get equipment and uniforms just like you have. That's what they need. And it's your job to contribute to your society, because we are now in a world where character matters. And I'm telling you, these programs, they want people first and players second. Show me how selfless you can be. Don't show me how selfish you can be with the camera constantly facing me. It's all about me. Look at what I'm doing. What are you doing for other people? How are you making a difference? And when I start bringing that back to you're going to go on these college tours, you're going to meet these coaches, you're going to apply to these schools, you're going to fall in love with these campuses, and then you're going to apply and you're going to wait to find out what the result is. Athletics takes you so far. Academics is basically equal across the board. How did you separate yourself as a person to want that college to have you be a part of their society? What I'm describing right now separates you. I guarantee you it separates you. And not only does it want that college to say, these are the type of people we want on our campus to one day be alumni, but there's oftentimes a dollar figure associated to it, and they will pay you based on this work and this effort you're doing to round out who you are, to build your character, they're going to reward you with merit scholarships. And I get, mom and dad, it doesn't come with the fancy sweatshirt, which is an athletic scholarship that we've been working on and chasing this white whale unicorn for the last 10 years. But money is money. A $100 bill with Benjamin Franklin on it and 100 singles with George Washington, they have the same value. You developing your son, your daughter, improving their character, setting them up for the next 40 years, not the next 4, that's going to be a game changer. And you know what? They're in 9th, 10th, 11th grade. They can't necessarily drive to these events. They don't necessarily know where to go. It is your leadership, your example that needs to be set in order to get them involved. And I hear it all the time. You know, I don't know if I would be comfortable with my son or daughter around the special needs children. I don't know if I'm that comfortable having my son or daughter go into the inner city and volunteer there. That could make them feel uncomfortable. It's a fair statement, not disagreeing with that it could be uncomfortable. But what do you think it's going to be like dropping some kid, some 17, 18-year-old doe-eyed freshman who's never really left the bubble of your town on a campus 4 hours away with 5,000 strangers? You think that's going to be comfortable? You better get comfortable with being uncomfortable real fast. Why not start in your own backyard, helping out these great causes to truly make a difference? I challenge every single one of my student athlete agents to step up and be better and get involved now. And then before I get to the last part, which I told you is about the anti-bullying initiative, I want to make something very, very clear. I come at hot. I come at you hot. Okay, I'm aggressive and there's a lot going on here. I realize for the moms and dads who I really put you, backs against the wall, maybe on your heels. I realize that so much of what you do, it is in the best interest of your son and daughters and the sacrifices you make. And it's not just financial, with buying the equipment and the entry fees and running around all over the region or all over the country, but also like you're not watching the game because you're running the concession stand for the booster club, or you might be the one in charge of the raffles and you're the one that's running the carpool and driving them from A to B, or in charge of the fundraising for the program, whatever it is. I get the sacrifices that you make for your sons and your daughters to enjoy and experience these type of opportunities. You know who else gets it? The coaches. You know who else? The athletic director. I mean, the athletic community, they understand what you're sacrificing and what you're doing for them. I get it too. You know who doesn't oftentimes get it? Your son or your daughter. They have no idea what you're doing for them on their behalf. So I want to pause here and say to every one of my student athlete agents, turn to your mom, turn to your dad, and say thank you, because they have earned it and they deserve it. And you have no idea what they are doing for you now, and you certainly have no idea how much more they are going to sacrifice for you to continue this journey and chase these dreams and passions of yours. So please take a moment and thank them. And if your grandmother, grandfather, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, sister, brother are there, thank them too. But make sure you thank mom and dad. Okay, so we're down the home stretch here. All right, Mr. Schmidt, let's go to the photos, please. So here are the photos. All right, I want everyone to take a look at these pictures. Now, if I was live and in person in your auditorium, I would challenge every one of you. And I would say, this student is walking down your hallway. You see this student, this kid walking down your hallway. And I want you to describe for me how this student would be described. I'm not saying you would say it, that it's your organic thought, but maybe the person 3 lockers down, the smart aleck on the team. Oftentimes it's the captain or the cool kid or the best player. But how is this kid getting described? And I know I can't hear your responses, so I'm just going to throw them out there of what you would say. Fat, dork, loser, geek, 4 eyes, unathletic. This kid hears that every single day walking down your hallway. Doesn't matter if it's a boy, doesn't matter if it's a girl, but that young boy, that young girl who walks down that hallway and hears that every single day, it's not teasing, it's not name calling, it's bullying. And it is real and it is an epidemic. And I am here to tell every one of my student athlete agents that it is your job, it is your responsibility to step up and ensure that that bullying isn't happening. You are a leader on the field, you are a leader off it. Let's go back to the full screen. When I tell you that it is your job to ensure that that bullying doesn't exist, whether it's 3 lockers down or the big, fast, cool, most athletic captain of the team, it's your job to intervene. Because It is not hard to walk down the hallway with that young man or that young woman. It is not hard to sit in the cafeteria and ask them how their day is. It's not tough when you see them at the pizza or the grinder place on a Friday night and say, how was your week? It's not that challenging. And I promise you, it will make a difference in their life. You will learn something about yourself. It'll make a difference in yours. And I will also tell you that in this world of trying to make a difference, to step up, to avoid the tragedies that too often we see play out, because the bullying never stops. Because in a world where 30 years ago, the bullying happened on the bus, at school, back on the bus, and then there was a break, not anymore. Why? Because of these weapons. The bullying never stops because it's on all those social media platforms. It's on these group threads. Those kids go home and the bullying exacerbates. There's never a break. And we are watching these young men and these young women make the most heart-wrenching of decisions to making the bullying go away. And you know what I'm talking about. You don't have to watch shows on Netflix. You can read the newspaper or turn on the nightly news. You're a student athlete. You're going to pick up strangers that you just knocked down to the ground. Your worst opponent, the team you hate the most, you're going to pull them up and give them a little tap on the backside. People that are truly what you'd consider your enemies, but the nice kid that lives 3 houses down for the last 6 years, you're going to bully them every day? Let me tell you a little something. You're going to go off to that college that I described. You know, the one everyone's on this call to go play at the next level for, right? You're going to be that 18-year-old doe-eyed freshman at a campus 4 hours away from home with 5,000 strangers. You're not going to have any friends yet. And those 20 and 21-year-old men and women adults, the ones that are bigger and faster and stronger and smarter than you, no, they're going to tease you and they're going to haze you and they're going to bully you. That is a fact. It's not fair, but it's some ridiculous rite of passage that exists. And when you're laying in bed at night wondering, why am I getting bullied? How come they're doing this to me? Maybe you should think back to the difference that you could have made in your community when you had a chance to step up and be a leader and stop that type of behavior. That's called karma, and it's real. And I told you, for all of those that are being bullied, for those of you that unfortunately are the victims of bullying, and too often, including at the major league level, the basketball, NBA, NFL, NHL, NASCAR, the bullying happens from the top down by people on their team. And I know too often, too many of you, you're bullied by your teammates. Well, let me tell you a little something about characteristics that you already have that no bully can touch, no bully can penetrate. You have 2 core characteristics. One is courage, the other is confidence. Why do I know that every single student athlete agent on this call has courage and confidence? Because you're an athlete. You better have courage if you are an athlete going up against opponents. You better have confidence if you are going to go up against an opponent. You have those fundamental core characteristics. It is your job to embrace those in whatever that gift is inside, because every one of you has a gift. But you've got to figure out that gift and you've got to build that courage and build that confidence around it. And the moment you do, and to me, that moment starts now. There isn't a bully that can penetrate it. It will become your Teflon. It will happen through high school. It will happen through college. It will carry through life. It will be your calling card. You've got to find that courage and that confidence. And the sooner you start, the easier it will get. And I can look into this camera and tell you with all the confidence and all the courage in the world that I know a little something about this because that fat dork loser geek has been talking to you for an hour. It is not about where you start. It is about how you finish. And I can tell you, as the person in those photos, I am living proof that it is not where you start this journey. It's where it takes you and how you want it to end. And the sooner you commit to it, the easier it will get. You don't win and lose the game in the opening minute, in the first inning. You have to play that game through. That is what we're talking about here. Who do you want to be? And the sooner you commit to that courage and that confidence, there isn't a bully out there that can touch you. I will close by telling you that every single person on this call, from my student athlete agents, to my parents, to my coaches, to my directors, athletic guidance, administrators, as a community, as a society, we have to 100% find a way to stop being part of the bullying problem and absolutely positively be the solution. I wish you a healthy, successful, safe rest of the school year. My appreciation and thanks once again to Mr. Schmidt and to the clubs that facilitated this. And truly from the bottom of my heart, as someone who is a resident, let's say a long time ago, of Massachusetts, Stonehill, we even lived in Pittsfield for a bit. It defined who I became, to come back to Massachusetts and to be able to deliver this messaging. All these years later, on all these experiences I've been able to gather, it means more than you will ever know. Mr. Schmidt, I give it back to you. Thanks again.
Mark, thank you. We appreciate the time you took out of your day to come and speak with us. Like I said at the beginning, I really enjoyed your message when I first heard it in May, and certainly appreciate you coming to speak to members of our community tonight. Once again, I do remind everyone that I did record this, and certainly will put it up and share the link so that those that weren't here tonight can certainly hear what Mark had to say. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know if anyone has any quick questions before Mark's got to go back and probably finish up his day. But if anyone has anything real quick, I know Mark would be certainly willing to answer. Don't need to be shy.
And as I pointed out at the beginning, Mr. Schmidt has my phone, he has my email. If somebody has a question or would like to make a comment, feel free to reach out to me that way. I travel for a living. I'm on the road for 7 months of the year. I always have time to respond.
Well, Mark, again, I appreciate it. From the Mendon Upton Nipmuc community, we thank you, wish you well, and appreciate you taking time out of your day today.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and continue to stay safe and be well.
You as well. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.